Donald Trump's trade war with China entered a new phase with China announcing new tariffs, Donald Trump announcing new tariffs just a few days ago. So let's go over those two big changes and the consequences, the fallout from that. China is going to institute tariffs on $60 billion in US goods. You're seeing here a screenshot from, I believe, the Washington Post. That's a Wall Street Journal, thank you. So that's a sizable chunk of all of the exports that we send to China. They're gonna be instituting higher tariffs, raising it from either 5 and 10% to 15, 20, 25%. So that is significant, and that comes after last week Trump imposed a 25% tariff on $200 billion of Chinese imports to the US. He also told aides to begin plans to hit more than $300 billion in other Chinese goods. And to give you an idea of the scale, I mean, that's most of them. That's a lot of all of the trade going back and forth. And so he put a 25% tariff on these goods, on a wide category of different goods. They hit back with the exact same level tariff. And so of course he is complaining, saying it's unfair that they're doing this. And we'll get into some of what he's said about it, but this is a story that we've been tracking for like a year now. And every time they ratchet it up, he talks about how awesome it's gonna be for the US. And we find out that it's bad overall for our economy. It's particularly bad for certain sectors like farming and things like that. A number of factories have been shut down because the parts that they use are more expensive thanks to these tariffs. It seems almost uniquely designed to hurt Trump supporters in business, but he has not dissuaded yet.
Yeah, and China has the power here because America loves to buy Chinese goods more than it appears they like to make things in America. And because our country, I mean, we can barely get to the point where we're forcing companies to pay living wages here in America. But we do turn a blind eye to horrible, almost like human rights abuses when you think the small amount of money that some of these massive companies are able to pay workers in other countries. They're just not making things here. So China, I think, has the upper hand. They're like, sure, we'll do the exact same thing, but guess what? You need us more than we need you.
Yeah, and look, if you look inside of China, there are some reasons to believe that things are getting a little bit better in a way that would make them, make the condition for Chinese workers better, but also make the cost comparison between producing the goods in the US and producing them in China a little bit less disparate, sure. But that is a slow process, that's going to take a while. I want to turn now to Donald Trump, what he has been saying as a result of this back and forth, especially because one of his big economic advisors came out and said, acknowledged that these tariffs are going to hurt people here in the US, something that Donald Trump is not willing to do. It's objectively true, but he's not willing to acknowledge it. And so Donald Trump said this: there is no reason for the US consumer to pay the tariffs, capitalized, which take effect on China today. This has been proven recently when only 4 points were paid by the US, 21 points by China because China subsidizes product to such a large degree. I have no idea what he's saying there, but what he is intending to do is to cloak with ambiguity a very simple truth. And that truth is that when he raises tariffs on goods coming from China to the US, China doesn't pay for those things, we pay for them.
Right.
If you wanna get that product and have it shipped here, you still have to pay for it, except now it's more expensive. That's just how tariffs work, and I can't help but think that we could have avoided a lot of trouble if he just Googled what are tariffs. Because he started talking about them and he started putting them in effect without really seeming to have any idea of how they actually work. So he has a little bit of advice, I guess, because this tweet storm, while it is still disingenuous, it does imply that he sort of gets that he's somewhat losing that messaging war. He says the tariffs can be completely avoided if you buy from a non-tariffed country or you buy the product inside the USA, the best idea. That's zero tariffs. Many tariff companies will be leaving China for Vietnam and other such countries in Asia. That's why China wants to make a deal so badly. Okay, so he's not wrong that if you were to buy that exact same good from a non-tariffed country or you were to purchase it from a manufacturer here in the US, you wouldn't have to pay the tariff. There's a reason that you're buying it from China in the first place though, because that's where they're made. That's where they're made, and they're not made in the US. Maybe some of those products are made in Korea or in Vietnam or something like that. If that's the case, you're probably buying it from them anyway. You can't suddenly, like those businesses are not suddenly going to crop up in the US just because you've raised the price on Chinese goods. And by the way, let's say he's not trying to fix things immediately, but he's putting in effect policies that will lead to these industries coming back to the US. They will come back to the US because the cost has now been artificially increased in China. It doesn't suddenly become cheaper to make in the US. Now, maybe it will be a little bit more appealing because that's the only alternative, but the price will still be higher. And so in the end, okay, maybe you've led to some more jobs in the US, but we're still paying artificially inflated prices for those goods. And so from a consumer's point of view, this is a little, like, I guess, it's another alternative explanation as to why he thinks that this would be good, since he's retreating from his original one. Is still not a good deal from the point of view of American consumers.
Right, something you said at the top of that statement there, just it's not even possible. These tweets do seem like he understands what tariffs are more, but you can't. It's not. You can't just snap your fingers and say, "Well, buy American." A lot of these things aren't. There aren't even competitors that manufacture things here. It's not, what is there one, like even just on basic things, what is there one sneaker company that actually makes the shoes here?
I don't even know.
I think it's New Balance.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You want a pair of New Balances?
Yeah. And I don't. From the point of view of an American consumer, whether your goal is lower prices or better work environments for the workers in other countries, I don't know why it would be preferable that these companies would move from China to Vietnam as an alternative. I don't know why that would be better. I understand that he's sort of single-mindedly trying to stick it to China at this point,
right?
While simultaneously making the case that he's the one who's actually for a better relationship with China. And look, I understand China engages in some business practices that are subversive, ultimately, in many different ways.
That's not the motive here.
No, it's not the motive. Yeah. But yes, if you want to change that behavior, you have to do something. I just think that this is incredibly self-defeating and one of the worst options you could take if your goal was to get China to change, their intellectual property law or whatever it is that you're trying to do, the way that they manipulate currency. This does not appear to be the way to do it. And again, as you pointed out, considering the trade imbalance that he understands is there, they do have more power in this relationship. And so he can keep trying to do this. It's only going to hurt us more and more as time goes on. Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.